Well, good morning. Welcome to the 6th day of December 2021. This is the Good Life Meditation. This is something I do every day to remember my objectives and principles that I use to help me live a better life. Boy, what an awful night last night. Had too many awful nights in 2021. What a rough year this has been. I have one of my principles is the principle of the Anchorhold. And picture a little rock sticking out of the ocean. We're standing, we're screaming on the rock, and the ocean, the swell the swell and the tide rise and fall. The water gets closer to us, and when the tide is high, it's difficult because the water appears close, and the water is dangerous. When the tide is low and the sea is placid, it's not so bad. So interesting, yesterday I tried something for the first time. I introduced the concept of the Anchorhold earlier in 2021 when I was going through a really rough time at my last job, and I couldn't sleep at night, and I was having panic attacks and anxiety, mostly at night. The night hours were really bad, and waking up early, which is not a good sign. And I was struggling to find a way to deal with that. Well, changing jobs was one of the things I did. Don't know that's necessarily the best solution, but let me fix this a little bit. What I mean is not that choosing a new job was a bad idea. It's just that sometimes wholesale change is sometimes less a management of a problem as escaping a problem. But the problems, which were all professional, that I was facing at that time, have pretty much all been managed. Well, they have. Let me adjust this a little more. How's that? That's worse. That's even worse. Oh, there we go. I was trying to get rid of that shadow behind my head. It's the stress of work, man. So anyway, I had a rough night last night. Because, today is the first day really in earnest that I'm starting my new job. And I've got a lot of responsibility and a lot of tasks. Difficult ones. I think I can do it. But once again, it's going to be a rough uphill climb. Yumiko, my wife, thinks that I'm a drama queen. Those are her words. And I think she's right. I think I do this as a form of distraction, another one of my principles. So I don't have to see, that, the Great Indifference, the cover of the book. I know she's right about that. Anyway, last night must have been about 1:32 a.m. that I woke up, and I just really couldn't go back to sleep. It's 4 a.m. now. Or probably 4:20 maybe. I always get up at 4. Okay, let's do the Good Life Meditation. Okay, I always begin with a, kind of thinking a little bit about yesterday. How did I do yesterday? I was worried that some things were going to ambush me. Like I said, I consciously pictured the tide rising and falling. I was having, because usually when I have a good sleep, good hour or two, and sometimes it's followed by a not so good hour or two. And I was aware of that. And first time I ever did that, I actually said, okay, Kurt, you're having a good couple of hours. Be on the lookout. Things are going to come that are going to try to knock you over, or not try. The universe doesn't give a damn. Things are going to come that you might have you being me, that might not have the strength to push through. That will kind of have the danger of knocking me over. And I did a good job all day long. I kept on top of it. I think yesterday was probably the most stoic day I've had of my entire life. It was, in terms of my ambition to live a stoic existence, yesterday was the most successful day yet. I'm very pleased with yesterday. And I think Yumiko noticed too, because we spent the whole day together. Yesterday was a good day, a very good day. Last night, not so much. Oh, that big spider is up there now. Yumiko noticed this big spider crawling around in the house. It's here in the room now. There's a big spider. Okay, first let's do the objectives and then the principles. First objective is to be always ready to die, to have all of my affairs in good order, my money, my relationships, and my activities that I want to do that are important to me. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of time, to not waste time, but to husband my time carefully, to use the hours and minutes effectively. Number 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. These are the 7 objectives and 27, soon to be 29 principles that I'm reciting now. To develop them, which I've done over the years, and then to maintain them by thinking about them every day and trying to find where the weaknesses are, areas for either refinement or where I might need to throw them out altogether. The next is the cultivation of good emotional reactions. To become the type of person who can react well to the circumstances of life, like I did yesterday. Wow. In terms of that objective, I really nailed it yesterday. Let's hope I can keep that up. I think I know the formula now. And that formula is to simply picture myself on the Anchorhold, on that little island sticking out of the ocean, and asking myself, how be the tide? Oh, the tide is low right now. I feel good. The water is kind of far away. The sea is calm. Beware, the tide will rise, and the sea may grow. And then when it comes, when a wave splashes hard against the rock, or I perceive the water rising, oh, this is the thing I expected. This is what I anticipated all along. It works. It really works. Yesterday, Yumiko and I were at Daiso, a Japanese goods store, and I saw these little dry erase marker boards, and I thought, I'll get one of those. And I thought, well, what the heck am I going to do with that? And now I know I could draw a picture of a little island and me on top, or and kind of the state of the sea. You see, here it is. It might be fun to do that. I could use it to draw all kinds of stuff. Illustrations of the point in the moment. The next objective is to perform good actions. Just do good things throughout the day. Yesterday I was at the dog park and my dogs had pooped, and I had a little bag, and I noticed as I was going into the dog park proper, because they pooped on the way to the park, that someone had taken 2 plastic gloves and just dropped them on the ground for some reason, maybe accidentally. So I realized, well, with my little poop bag and covers my hand, I can reach down and pick those up as well. So that's a little good deed, you know. Oh, another thing I did yesterday that was really good. I was in this parking lot, and just madness in the parking lot. And I just decided I'm not going to engage in trying to weasel my way into a slot, but I'm just going to simply carefully maneuver up and down. Not that I ever do. I never weasel in. I never cut in front of anybody. But you know what I mean. You kind of get yourself in this frame of mind. Like if I could just strategically get over here in time and kind of beat that person that I can kind of see coming from the other way, then without being aggressive, I can get the spot. None of that. Just calmly motor up and down until I get a spot. Sounds simple. Spiders have a good time. It sounds simple, but it was a little, but it worked. It's a little tricky to keep your mind focused on that, and not run away. That's the principle of temperance, controlling anything. After that objective is the objective to recognize true limits and true opportunity. What I really can and what I really can't do. I was thinking about that yesterday with this project that I've got. There's some things that I just can't do. Some things that are beyond me. And I have to remember that. Because that's where the anxiety comes. If I try to solve problems that I can't solve, yet I feel obligated to solve them, that's an intractable problem. The next objective is to just do one thing slowly. Slow, measured, like I'm doing now. I feel like I'm really hitting my stride in terms of that objective as I recite my principles here and objectives, going over them one by one with a good margin-like pause between them. It's good to have those boundaries of empty space to kind of delineate. Man. I keep saying it was a rough night. It's still a rough now. I don't think I can keep this up. These new lives that you make when I keep creating for ourselves. It's fun. It's interesting. Makes life interesting, but I'm getting tired of it. I just, just the transition is hard. Maybe one more into a retirement situation. Not enough sleep. Those are my objectives. Now to my principles. The first principle is the principle of war. To be at war with everything that I believe is true, and anything that I propose is true, and believe. Anything that you believe or propose, or anybody else. Excuse me. 2. Reason, and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, and doubt. Reason is the tool that I use to wage that war, and the tool that I use to live my life. 3 is the homunculus, the little mortal, fictitious, of course, just a little idea of a man or a woman that lives inside our head, who is our consciousness and who will die with us when we die. Next is the Anchorhold, which I've talked about already. That's the homunculus that's perched on the Anchorhold. The next is the Home of Good and Evil, which is just a catalog of right and wrong that is written in chalk inside with the homunculus. Picture it like under my writing bridge. Like I wrote all these principles and objectives in chalk. It blows away. Can't be erased. Next is the principle of purpose. And there are 3 purpose in my life. Biology, to reproduce and have a kid. Virtue, to live a virtuous life, where virtue is defined as the improvement of the well-being of thinking creatures. And mission, fulfillment, the pursuit, execution, and fulfillment a mission in life. So far, my missions have been writing my books. Next is the atomic principle, the reminder that everything is made of bits and pieces, flowing and changing and forever transforming. And likewise, you and me, we're just bits and pieces too. Now, after the atomic principle is the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature. And it's good to remember what that is and recognize it and abide it. Let's pick something. It's the nature of a new project. I'll think about myself for here. It's the nature of a new project. To be indeterminate at first, until we can define what it is. And that's my task right now, is to define what this project is. Luckily, I have a toolkit to do that. Yeah, a toolkit of my own, the project management methodology that I use. And I will use that to do just that. And then I'll be on better footing. And maybe then I'll sleep better at night. Oh, it's so tempting to, you want to run away, right? Life gets like this. Just like, run away. There's been so many times in my life that I've wanted to run away. And I never do. Well, I mean, maybe switching up life like this, moving from America to Japan was running away. Maybe moving from Japan back to here was running away. And maybe going back to Japan again will be running away yet again. Although I tend not to think of it that way. I think of it more as transition changes, but maybe it is running away. Things that never really changes. I remember this same anxiety when I was 10 years old. Next is the principle of the pirate ride, the proposal that free will is an illusion. I hold that proposal on faith. Next is the principle of the maturity, and the two sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude. Of wisdom and fortitude. See a little better pause there, speak better. Wisdom, what we gain when we make mistakes and we have successes and we remember these things. And fortitude, to particularly not repeat the mistakes and avoid that. When we do that, we're mature. After principle of maturity comes, or is it? There you go. After the principle of maturity comes the principle of the social principle. We're social animals. We need one another. As much as sometimes it's so tempting to just say, well, I would rather not take on these challenges of life. I'd rather just live in a van by the beach. I know that's costly too. Maybe more costly than this. But what do I know? After that is public speaking. A reminder to use few words, deliberate words, carefully chosen words, the right words, and to always speak about others as though they can hear what you're going to say. Another success yesterday. I was driving down the neighborhood and I suddenly thought of a neighbor, and I thought to gossip to my wife about it. And I pointed to the house and I said, "Do you see that house right there, those couple?" And I realized I was about to gossip. I was about to share some juicy bit of information. And my wife said, "Yes." And she's not a gossip, but she said, "Yes." And I immediately switched it. I said, "Oh, I was watching them put their Christmas lights up." And quick change. They did a very nice job, didn't they? She says, "Oh, yes, they did." And I diverted away from the bit of gossip that I was going to do. I was quite proud of myself again. I might not have caught myself and done that had I Had it not been that I recite this every morning, I have done it for years, and it puts these ideas foremost in my head. The next principle is the principle of temperance, which is our controlled consumption of all things: food, drink, work, play, thoughts, words, everything. The next principle is the principle of the Feast of Offal, O-F-F-A-L, the waste and byproduct of our intemperate living, the upset that we're railing at the world. I saw a man yesterday, a little bit of road rage, rolling his window down and 2 cars up from me to yell at the car next to him. And I was thinking, the feast, just the world, and then, clearly probably unsettling the person next to him, who then will go on to have their anxiety, their ire raised, and maybe they'll spew that out somewhere else, and the feast goes on. Next principle is distraction. We distract ourselves through all kinds of things: work and play and family and hobbies, sports, drinking, going to sports events, whatever and everything we like to do, all the things in our life distract us from looking at that in particular, which is the next principle, the Great Indifference, or more particularly, agency in the Great Indifference. The difference being agency being the fact that creatures like us, sentient creatures, can view the world, can see the world, and then the Great Indifference is the void that we look at, that universe without any face of deity that seems to just howl into the night. That's the awful and Great Indifference, and I think that those two are related. The principle of distraction, because we distract ourselves. Well, we distract ourselves because we keep busy. That helps ensure that we survive, but it also, on a kind of a higher level, keeps us from seeing that. The next principle is the best seat in the house. The idea that I don't want to be anyone else, or be anywhere else, or be doing anything else, but to try to be okay with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing right now. And believe me, I'd rather not be who I am, where I am, or doing what I'm doing right now. I've got a challenging day ahead of me. At the same time, that's good. It gives me a mission. So just screw up some courage, Kurt. Buckle up and just make this happen. And I will. That's another reason why it's so important to have a family. It gives you somebody to take on the tough stuff for, on behalf of, for the benefit of. Okay, now that was, the next principle is the Path of Wildness. It's easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. The Path of Wildness is where we live when we move with courage through life, not waiting life out, but pressing forward in spite of our fear and through our fear. It's a really tough way to go. It gets harder as we get older, doesn't it ever? After the Path of Wildness comes the risk of avoiding risk, the surface level risks of life, education, companionship, buying a house, getting a job, not in that order, and saving for retirement, all those good sound things that we need to do. That's the surface level stuff. It doesn't say that it's easy, but it's stuff that society guides us towards and everybody applauds. And then the deep risk, which is what the hippies were saying, finding ourselves and doing something about that. It's tough to do both. It's tough to fulfill the surface level stuff and the deep level stuff, or the deep and then also maintain the surface. Usually we do it at the expense of one or the other. Just keeping in mind that's the purpose of the principle, that they're both important, seemingly. The next is sin and damnation. In my worldview, there's no God, so there's nothing to sin against. Although I maintain that there are sins against a well-lived life. There are sins against reason, in particular, and these sins are 7. The first is hope. Hope is a sin because it's vacant. It's just a want. It doesn't have any action component of action. So hope needs to be coupled with some sort of emotive force to be realized. So hope alone is not a virtue, but hope in companionship with action is something good. But then it's not just hope. Credulity is an overeagerness to believe, or willingness to believe. Faith, because faith is the evidence of things unseen. At least if you use the version of one of the definitions in the Bible. Superstition, because that is identified as something that we believe that appears that we might not have any good reason to believe. It appears to be believing things that appear to be supernatural. It's almost by definition an act of credulity. Dogma, because that's believing the stuff because the tradition says so. Authority, that's believing things because someone said so. That's in a position that, who are we to question? And then the last sin is gossip, which I talked about already. And we're damned because when we believe things without good reason, or we gossip, we live a damned life. Next is the Great Life Adventure. The Great Life Adventure is one or more marquee events in our lives, things that happen that really define our life, that help to make our character a very first world pursuit, right? Not something that you're not likely to have much of a great life. You can't really have a chance to have a great life adventure if you can't even get enough food to eat. So keeping that in mind. I recommend the decade of the 20s, if you can, to cultivate, have a couple of great life adventures, or at least one. Become the nucleus of your identity. The next principle is the season of philosophy, a time to record what we've learned along the way, to write our book, to write our poem, to paint our picture, to take our photo, to make that vlog before we die. Something to leave behind on a little shelf. I have a little shelf. You can't see it. It's over there. It has all the stuff that I've made. So it doesn't take up too much space. After I'm dead, Emily can just reserve a tiny little shelf for Dad. And I don't expect it'll last too long. Too many generations, it'll be gone. Maybe not even one. But it's kind of reassuring to know that you've left something behind, some little mark, some little scribble, some words. Okay, after that comes the bullseye aim, just attempting to hit the mark, usually missing, and just remembering that. And then the uphill climb. Life is a struggle. It's a climb. And then the arena and utility. Life is an arena for activity and execution of our life. And we have tools, which are the utilities that we use to do that. I like to picture like a Roman Colosseum, and we're out there, fighting away in life or doing whatever. We've got all these tools like swords and things like that, reason, apathy, whatever, hanging there and there. Did I miss apathy again? Or temperance, those 3 sub-principles of temperance are suffering, simplicity, and apathy. Suffering because we suffer when we deny ourselves what we want. Simplicity because a simple life is a temperate life. And apathy being the ability to recognize what is within outer control, outside our control, and to just let that be. And I think I'm almost done now. One left, because I went back to temperance and I came all the way back to the end. Last principle is nothing is enough. Just remembering sometimes that nothing is plenty. All right, well, that was my good life. Meditation, that is. Now, thinking forward for the day, today's going to be an interesting day. My plan is that at the start of every day, because I work from home now, when I start my work, I send an email to my boss. And when I end my work, I send an email to my boss indicating that stuff started and ended. I don't have any meetings today, but I'm using in Microsoft Outlook, there's a little task list. And I've listed out the things that I'm planning to do today, which are basically to use the morning I have some HR activities that I have to complete as I'm a new hire. I'm going to work on those HR activities, get those all done. After that, then I'm going to create, I remember I mentioned I have a way of managing projects. I'm going to create the artifacts that I need for the 2 projects that I'm going to get, create those artifacts, begin to lay those out. And from there, I'm going to begin training. I want to use this entire week to train myself on a new piece of software that I need to learn. It's part of one of the projects that I'm going to work on. So I'm going to I've listed those things already in the Outlook task list. So when I send the email to my boss, I'm going to take a little snippet of that and include that and say, here's what I'm planning to do today. And then at the end of the day, as I knock those things off, another snippet to show here's where I stand. And that will give him, or maybe I'll just do it in the morning, every morning, right, instead. Because the one in the morning, because if I do that in the afternoon, then the one in the morning will look the same, right? So maybe just every morning, here's my task, bang, 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 like that. And maybe then a little summary of any issues that I might have, and etc. I think if I do that, if I communicate clearly, then I'll be in better shape. The feeling right now is like being in a rowboat, about to row out into the sea all by myself. I'm ready to do this. I hope you have a good day too. Best wishes on the execution of your good life. Remember, be safe, but not too safe. Take care.